And we are live. Okay, cool. This is a very impromptu episode of Office Hours. I've been super busy recently. We're working on a bunch of interesting content, workflows, and much more. And so I thought for this episode of Office Hours, I'll just show you what I do when I open up Nansen and also how you can get started doing your on-chain research. So one of the things we're focusing on at the moment is a lot of in-app education. So what I mean by this is that you'll start seeing videos throughout the product to understand how you can use certain features, understand certain workflows, and then with that, we'll start having articles and so much more from there. So one of the big pain points that we've realized from our users, what you've been saying to us is that, hey, how do we make the most out of this product? And that is what we're here to solve. And so one of the cool things about Office Hours, this gives you your opportunity to ask me questions, fire away workflows, what do you want me to look into, and so much more. I haven't promoted this episode, like I say, very off the cusp, so most people might be watching this after. So that's why I wanted to focus on the whole idea of what I do, some places for you to start looking, and hopefully we find some interesting stuff. Again, Office Hours is live, so we don't know what we'll see. We don't know what's going on, and hopefully we find something good. If not, then that sucks, but you'll have to watch the entire episode to find out. Okay, so introduction's done. What do you do when you start using Nansen? So one of the best places to start using Nansen is our Signals tab. Signals, if you press on the I here, it just explains what the feature is, and you can see this throughout the product. So Signals surface extraordinary on-chain insights in real time, so you can kind of get an edge in the market. You can see things happening before anyone else, and then use that information to your advantage. So what we can see here is there's a smart money token flow signal here, which popped up conveniently when I started doing Office Hours. So we can see that smart money has sent 1.7 million of Rollbit in the past 24 hours, which is 56x the recent average. Pretty scary numbers. What does this mean? So first and foremost, smart money are the best performing addresses of their sector. These could be NFTs, this could be liquidity providers, this could be DEX traders, but we just group smart money just like that in there. And we also can know the token. We also use the word sent because sent could mean that they've transferred it to another address. This could mean that they've sent to an exchange. This could mean that they've sent it for a decentralized exchange and they're selling. So we really need to dive into the signals to discover if there's anything interesting here. So to do this, we just tap on RLB, and that sends you to the page's token god mode page. Token god mode, again, if you want to press on the I here, if you don't know anything about a product, there should always be a little tooltip here to tell you what's going on. And so token god mode is your place to do your research on a token. It gives you all the data points that you need. Some really interesting areas to look into is the who bought and who sold. This tells you effectively who bought and sold, and it's ordered into priority. So the biggest buyers and sellers over the last 24 hours and 7 days. This is a really, really powerful tool to find interesting addresses. But we could do an episode on that another day. But I'm a big fan. So the signal was for smart money. So I'll just go to the smart money tab. Smart money is exclusive to our paid customers. And so let's have a look. So we can look at this tokens held by smart money and wallets. And we can see the holders and balances being steadily increasing throughout 2023. Then it's been pretty flat. And then as we saw the signal, boom, a bit of a drop. Interesting. So we scroll down here, go to token holdings, as the name implies. These are the token holdings by smart money addresses. I'm going to go by 24 hours. So there has been 2 smart money addresses doing things in the past 24 hours. One has been buying and one has potentially been buying and another has potentially been selling. So what I'm going to do here, and this is a really handy trick, is to press Command and then click on the address like that. And I'm going to do the same with this address here. And so the reason why I do Command click rather than just clicking, it means I can open up the tab, making up a new tab for the address, so I can do my research for that address, or keeping the token god mode page open where I want it. And so another cool feature as well is that you can hover over an address to figure out who they are. This is a profitable address in 90 days and 180 days. They're a smart DEX trader. This is really interesting. And we can see if we scroll up slightly, the price is up slightly. So maybe they're looking to make a good return. And if we look at DACM, they're a fund. So that's also very interesting. So how can we use that to our advantage? So what I'm going to do is first go to the address that is buying. So I'm going to switch my tab. And this gives you an overview of the address. If you're new to Nansen, there's this drop-down menu here, which allows you to see the address across all the chains that we support, and we're supporting many more chains in the future. A small alpha leak as well. Everything's going to go multi-chain very soon. So that's signals, there'll be multi-chain. So you can see signals soon for optimism, linear, base, phantom, so much more. You'll be able to set up smart alerts for them. Features will also be multi-chain. So the big emphasis coming up will be multi-chain. We haven't said too much about that on socials, but the point of office hours is, one, you get to learn about how to use Nansen. 2, you get to understand more about the product. 3, you get to ask those questions. And 4, occasionally I'll tease a few features. So you can see this address across all the chains. Quite cool. You can see that DGen is their top holding across, where they've done quite well, most likely, as they're a smart DEX trader. But we're going to go back down to Ethereum quickly here. So because it was Rollbit, the token that we're interested in, we go to overview. And then what we're going to do here is go to right click and then wallet profile of the token. So when you press right click, you can see the options to choose from, and then from there you can decide what you want to do. Typically, when you're doing research, wallet profile of a token is a fantastic place for you to do your research, because it shows the address, which we can see here, and then we can see the token's holdings, and then we can get some information from that. So what we can see here, we can see trades happening 9, 8, 7. So every single day, this address, by the looks of things, is gradually buying more and more of this token, Rollbit. And if we zoom out a little bit, yep, we can only see this has been happening in the last 9 days. So this address is building up a position in Rollbit, and they're doing it gradually. They're buying, what was it, 20K, 29K, 29K, 36K. So they're going very aggressive in buying this token. And even though the price has increased from, what was it, from 10 cent to now 13 cent, they're still going quite aggressive in the amount that they're buying. So they're betting quite big on this. And what we can do now is click on the address here and then go to P&L. P&L is coming out very, very soon. We've completely redone it. Really, really interesting. As you can see here, you get highlights from the address in the last 30 days. This will help you assess whether an address is powerful or not, or something where you want to take insights from. So for example, we can see the address has over $100,000 in unrealized gains in Ribbon. And they've also had a big loss with this token, AXL, but this is all unrealized. Something that's really, really cool as well is that you can see realized and unrealized gains. So this will help you assess how actionable an address is. If, for example, in Ribbon, the address is up significantly in unrealized gains and you hold that token, what you can do is set up smart alerts for that address. Smart alerts allow you to track specific activity, like an address or a token sends, and much more, so that you can see what they're doing in real time. So what I would do if I was interested in Ribbon is set up smart alerts with this address specifically for the token Ribbon, so that when they do anything with Ribbon, whether they buy or sell, I'm notified in either Slack, Discord, or Telegram, and I know what they're doing, and I can use that information to help understand my position effectively. So Nansen will never tell you when to buy or sell. We just give you the information and the data for you to make the best decision, or to make decisions with precision. And what we can see here as well is that they're up currently on their Rollbit position by 7% and up about 16,000 in unrealized gains, which is really interesting. So we can see that they're up and they're constantly buying. So what I would do in this example is I'm going to go to this eye here, and this will allow you to add the address to your watch list. So what I would do, I would say that they are a smart money DEX trader. I'm not going to change the name because that gives me enough information. But what I'm going to do is add the token ticker, so RLB. And so the reason why I do this is so that if I'm interested in addresses that are doing interesting things, I want to, when I see them throughout Nansen, I want to know what token initially alerted me to the address. So if I see this address, I go, they bought some stuff, interesting stuff with Rollbit. So for me, I want to see how that's performed and use that as a reference point. So I can go, I use that as a way to remind me of their behavior. And then I'm also going to say that they are swapping. So they're basically buying a token. So they like to build a position not in one day, but over a gradual period of time. So that kind of tells me that they are there's conviction. So everything to do with smart money and generally addresses across Nansen or across Ethereum, so blockchains generally, is that the time horizon will always vary between different addresses. And understanding that is very, very beneficial, because some addresses might be thinking very short term, some addresses might be thinking much, much longer term. A few weeks ago, we covered the address John Doe 69, and they bought Pendle 3 years ago. They were gradually building their position up. They were staking, they were doing so much, and only recently, after 3 years, are they starting to reduce their position, and they're making an absolute killing off that trade. Whereas some people might be thinking in terms of weeks, and in some cases even days. But what we see from this address so far is that they are buying gradually for the past couple of days, and they're building this position, and they're doing it with conviction. So that's really interesting to see. And then we're going to add this address to my watch list. And so where do you see your addresses? You go to the sidebar here, go to watch list, and you can see that address. So you can always go back to this address and see what they're doing and seeing their growth. Really, really interesting is that across all chains, their portfolio has risen substantially. So this is, for me, something that I'm finding very interesting. But the signal showed that there was over a significant amount of Rollbit sent. So what we've done so far is found an address that is buying, and we found that they're actually quite interesting and potentially actionable. So what we did so far is add that address to our watch list, and then set some custom labels for that address. If you're really interested in that address, you could also set smart alerts, and the way you do that, like I say, would be through just pressing smart alerts here and then going from there. So let's switch to the other tab and see the other address. So we know that DACM is a fund. If you follow us on Twitter, you would have seen that we've recently put a tweet out to say that we are currently updating all of our funds. So funds that aren't smart, that have a low smartness score, will be removed, so that the funds that have the smart money fund label are ones that are performing very well, which is really interesting. So that gives you a bit of extra value in the product in our labels, and you should know that we always regularly update our labels to make sure they're the best they possibly can be. So the transaction they made is, let's go to the P&L tab. And we want to go to the P&L tab to see Rollbit, to see their view here. Last year, and we want to just go down to here. Again, this is a completely new feature they're adding, which is really interesting. You can see the ROI of some of these address tokens and stuff like that. We can see they've been staking some tokens here. Their ETH, their trade performance. It's always interesting to see what they hold as well on top of that. So I just went past Rollbit there. And so I'm going to right click again. This allows you to save the address to your watch list, or token to your watch list, create a smart alert, as I was saying earlier, wallet profile of a token and more. We're going to go to wallet profile of a token, and let's see what they were doing. So what we see here is that they currently hold nothing, so they completely exited their position from this address, and that's important to emphasize this address, because right now we don't know what they've done. All we know is that there's been a signal to say that smart money has moved funds away. And so we're going to look into it 9 months ago. So we're going to go to the yearly view. I'm also going to go to the yearly view here as well in the transactions tab. And so the balance over time will show us that there's been volume in, when there's been volume out, and the overall balance. And we can see the big drop off was in the last 24 hours. And what we can see here is that if we zoom all the way out to the very first time they made a transaction of the year, so they received a bunch of tokens. So I'm going to command click from there. Then they also did some swaps. They also did even more swaps here to sell. As we can see here, we can see the costs that they sold and where it's their current valuation. So they from there a few months ago, and we can see that they were buying again, which is interesting to see. But the thing that we want to look into here is that this counterparty here, 0xA1B9AE, is also the same one here that they interacted with 8 months ago. And so in this case, they had the funds transferred into them, 1.45, but this time they've actually smoothed it out. So who is this address? Let's find out. So again, I'm going to press command click. The first thing we're going to do is go to the first address where they first received the tokens. As we can see here, it's the Rollbit. And it's first funded from a Circle depositor. And we get back down to related wallets. And then we can see that they were an investor distribution recipient. I'm not too sure where that's from. Interesting. First, the distributions, go to counterparties, see if there's anything here to tell us what tokens they received. Not too clear here. So this may be a fund or something. So what I'm going to do from this point on is pass this on internally. We have a team that do all the sleuthing to find all these on-chain addresses, to find all the funds and stuff like that. So we're going to pass this on to see if we can get that label updated and see if we could do some investigation to figure out who this is, because they're the giga brains that figure out everything. They're incredibly powerful. And if you've noticed recently, we've done a lot more on-chain content focusing on interesting addresses. They're the reason for that, because they find really interesting stuff. And we can see that it is the same address here as well. So they may have received this rollbit as a token from an invest, and then they've moved it back here. And so we go to their transactions tab. As we can see, they moved their rollbit. So they received rollbit from DACM, as we saw. We said sent, and the importance of saying sent rather than sold is to highlight that sometimes funds can be moved out of an address, and we want to use signals as a way to surface the extraordinary on-chain event, and then from there, do your research to decide how actionable this is. So from there, we can see that they've moved the funds to this address here that we're looking at, and from this address, they moved it to high activity. So we're going to go into this address here, and I've just clicked because we're currently doing the workflow and I have the address saved in another tab. I don't need to worry about doing command click. We go down here, top circle depositor, doesn't tell us too much right now. We look at transactions, and we can see that the funds have been moved to Amber, which is interesting. That's interesting. And let's just see what else they're doing to see if, just to get an understanding of that. So right now, this was literally 21 minutes ago. So again, it shows you how timely signals are. So what we initially saw is that there's been an outflow from smart money. We can see, let's go back down to this signal actually, just to show you what it looked like. Boom. Smart money sent this funds out. How actionable is this? Well, for me right now, we've looked into the token. So when we looked into the token, we went to smart money. We found an address that's got some interesting conviction. And now what we found is that the address that moved funds, so DACM, the fund, has moved funds all the way into Amber, which it tells us that they are potentially market making, or they might be doing OTC, and they were doing something there that could be potentially actionable. I find that very interesting, actually. So I'm going to set up smart alerts for this address, and I'll show you how to do that flow, but I can finish it off once I am offline, because I don't show my Telegram or Slack, so then for privacy. But what you would do is effectively do new alerts, and then you would do token transfer. And then because I've saved this under a certain label, I would say that, let me go back to, so I'm going to give this address another label here. I'm going to call it Amber, and then RLB for rollbit. Save labels. So then I'll go to smart alerts, new alerts, token transfers is from custom label, Amber, RLB, token, RLB, RLB here for rollbit. And then from there, I'm going to say anything, a minimum value of $10,000. And then from there, what I'm effectively going to do is, I'm not sure whether it's 9,000. And then I'm going to set a trigger condition from there. And then I'll set the notification up for Slack and Telegram. So I'll have Slack because that's where I work and where everything goes. And so when I see this interesting on-chain insights, I can take action straight away. And at the same time, I have it on Telegram because if I'm just on my phone, I just want to see what's going on. So I often find that by having notifications in Slack and Telegram, I can see what's going on in real time and take action from there. I'm not too sure where this funds will go, but for me already, I'm finding this signal to be very actionable, very interesting. But you have to wait and see what Amber do with these funds. They could be using for market making. They could be selling. I'm not too sure. As I said earlier, we'll send it over internally, and the internal team will have a look into this and they'll hopefully be able to put some light onto it. And again, if this is interesting, then that's quite cool. And so a good example of this where I used the internal, like the guys, is this Pantera alert. You can see I've triggered 4 times token transfers. If we go to my watch list, we can see, for example, these addresses here. They were Pantera Capital, and they received Stark, and then they were moving Stark into exchanges. And this wasn't happening just one day. This happened in about a course of a week. And then from that point on, we were able to see that they were selling the token or doing OTC deals, depending on where they sent the funds. So some of them went to Coinbase Prime, others went to other exchanges. And that was an interesting point because after they moved those funds, we saw the price take a dip from there. So that's a good way for you to take a signal, do your research, set up custom alerts, so custom labels, and set up smart alerts for the address. And then when they take action, you can also see what's going on in there. And because you have the context of that signal and the addresses, you can use that information to decide how you want to act in the market. And so like another thing as well at the moment is that NFTs, shocking, they're still a thing. And not only are they still a thing, if we go to the NFT section within Nansen, I think it's the first time I have shown NFTs since I've been at the company doing office hours. And we can see that the prices are up. green. So let's just take a look to see who's buying, if there's anything interesting going on there. You get some interesting information here about the market overview. Moonbirds, let's look into them. I found them to be quite funny because I remember catching a lot of the sellers when they were acquired, and there was just no right hit. And I think I put some content out about that. And so what I want to see is addresses that bought in the last 7 days, because if we zoom out from the 19th, the price is quite low and now it's like increased. So have there been any smart money buyers? Have there been any addresses that are buying, doing interesting stuff? Let's have a look. And so what we can see immediately are these 2 blue chip holders, and we can see this address here as well, which is super interesting. So I'm going to command click into all 3 of those addresses. And I'm going to do some research into them. But also what we want to show you is that you can do some really cool things here where you can like highlight and hover over an address, an NFT, and you can see the price, the rarity, and the AI pricing. So as you can see here, Moonbird 2203, AI price is 0.74. They just sold it for 0.75. So the AI that we have internally to evaluate the prices of these NFTs is pretty spot on. Again, very similar here. It's not too far off. Again, very close. So it's quite cool to see the AI like pricing right now, and how similar it is to some of the listing prices. And so sometimes what you can do as well is find some really undervalued NFTs if you're interested in buying them, if you care about traits. And so the way you do that is you go to the items tab for the NFT. So in this case, Moonbirds. And then you want to go to the AI value gap, which is here. And then you can see the difference. So in this example, we're seeing not many 2 listed with a gap difference, but in some occasions we can find that there are NFTs here that there's a much bigger gap, which is quite cool. So this blue chip NFT holder here, it doesn't look like they're doing anything too interesting, but we go to their NFTs, and that's the thing we care more about at the moment because they're focusing on NFTs. And so we can see their information. They hold 20 Moonbirds with an estimated value of 13 ETH. The median price is 0.65. And they've made a few transactions. And if we go down here, we can see that they've been buying on Blur between that price range here. They've just been going at it like no tomorrow, which is very, very interesting. And when we go back to Moonbirds, we can see that their price at the moment is 0.68. So this address looks likely to have just bought just the tailwinds is going up, and they're hoping that the price will continue to surge. So if you're interested in Moonbirds, you could track that address and see what they're doing. Are they looking to sell as well? When they sell, maybe they made a small little profit and they've got go from there. Otherwise, what you can do is just continue to look for other addresses. Personally, NFTs aren't an area of too much excitement, but it's quite interesting to see addresses still just making a bunch of bids, hoping they can catch tailwinds and see what's going on from there. And if we go to the NFT tab for this address, the other one, we can see another address that's got 19, which is worth about 13 ETH, and they've just also been buying quite aggressively, actually. So we can see there's been some addresses that are buying, If we scroll down, Coinbase hot wallet, go to the other tab actually, we go to the overview, Coinbase hot wallet. Interesting. Yeah, sometimes I find this interesting when you go to the first funded part, just because you're trying to figure out who this address is. And if we look at their behavior, so we go to the transactions tab, it's very hit and miss. And to sweep up a bunch of Moonbirds in the last 24 hours, and for two people to do it, both funded from Coinbase, I don't know. It's interesting. I don't know how much higher they'll go. I think I've seen people on Twitter talk about how NFTs probably aren't going to make it right now, but you never know. But what we have seen is there's two addresses right now that have got some serious conviction behind Moonbirds. Either they're hoping they'll pump up quite quickly, or they'll make a nice quick trade. And then let's look at some other NFTs. So what we can do here is go to, let's say, Pudgy. Actually, let's do Bored Apes. They haven't received much love for a long time. So let's see what they're doing. Price is up 43% in the last 7 days. Very impressive. That's quite interesting to see here. If we go to the items tab, let's see if there's any big AI value gap. And yeah, there is a lot more of a gap here. So you can see a difference between 4 ETH, 4 ETH, 3.5 ETH, 3 ETH, all significant double digits here. You can see the NFT here, the rarity, the value, and just go from there. So there's some interesting price differentials that are different from what we saw in Moonbirds earlier. And then we can go and try and see if there's any interesting addresses that have been buying and caught that early tailwind. So cbb.eth looks like to be the address that has done that. And we go to their NFTs. And then we are going to scroll down there. Very, very, very active. Oh, that's very active, actually. And we can see the portfolio. And they may have actually sold as well. So transactions, filter for interesting. So let's just scroll back. Again, the NFT stuff is still quite new, so we're still going to make some improvements there to the dashboard. Because you used to be able to filter just by the NFT collection, but you can't do that at the moment. So I'll pass that feedback on. But I could go through that, but given we're going to have 3 minutes left, that is not too interesting. But that could be something there with this address. Yeah. So for this episode, like I say, it's been very off the cusp. We're trying to figure out what's going on. We actually found some interesting stuff with this signal here. I hopefully shared some tips and tricks on what to do when you find something that's potentially interesting. So this would be taking the address and doing some research on there, and then figuring out why the signal was triggered in the first place and what you can do with that. You can really focus on that by just going to the signal, doing your research, and then hopefully you can find something interesting there. One thing that's really, really useful, for example, is being able to set smart alerts for signals that you're really interested in. So, for example, if you are someone who has Rollbit, you can say, look, I'm interested in smart money token flow, and I'm also really interested in centralized exchange token flows. So this would be people buying or selling, potentially moving funds away that are smart money addresses, or funds that are moving either into an exchange or out from an exchange. And then I'm going to say, look, I'm really interested in the token Rollbit. And so what I'm going to do there now is when I set the trigger conditions, I'll be able to get those alerts in either Slack, Telegram, Discord. And whenever there is an interesting movement for Rollbit, I'll be able to surface that right away. And so this is one of the really cool ways that you can use smart alerts to really personalize your experience and get the alpha that you really want from Nansen without having to do all the research and staying updating and refreshing that all the time. The movement happened, the extraordinary on-chain movement happens real time. You get notified, you can take action. So you can make decisions with precision. Wasn't too much structure with this episode of Office Hours. We're working on a bunch of other stuff behind the scenes. You're likely to see my face a bit more throughout the Nansen product. I don't know if that's a good or a bad thing. I'll let you decide. But yeah, that's just one of the ways that you can use Nansen, and just the way that without knowing too much about the product, how you can get started and hopefully start extracting valuable alpha from the product. Go to your signal, do some research, figure out why it was triggered, and then from there, you can hopefully use that to your advantage. So that's this episode of Office Hours. Next week, there won't be an episode because I am out of office. And on that note, see you later.